HOA alert. Outdoor decor displayed before December 1st. Remove immediately. That's it, 90 seconds of twinkle, already outlawed. I stare at the screen, a single icicle LED still dangling from my glove, and whisper, "Merry Thanksgiving, Karen." She's already there. Like clockwork. Karen, HOA president, neighborhood watchdog, and self-appointed guardian of community standards. She struts down the sidewalk in her fleece vest and orthopedic sneakers, gripping her HOA-issued clipboard like it's the Ten Commandments. Her eyes lock onto my porch like a missile, lips pursed, phone raised, already snapping photos. Decorations before December 1st. She calls out, loud enough for the squirrels to hear. "You've been warned in last month's bulletin." I nod politely. "It's just lights, Karen. My niece loves them." She smirks. "Rules are rules. You can express your holiday cheer when the calendar says so. Not before." And with that, she pivots, leaving behind silence, a warning slip, and the faint smell of peppermint arrogance. I wasn't trying to cause a spectacle. Just a single strand of warm white lights, draped neatly along the porch railing, nothing flashy. No inflatables. No dancing snowmen. Just a quiet little glow to remind my niece that her uncle still remembers their tradition, even with her dad stationed overseas this Christmas. She'd FaceTimed me the night before, beaming with excitement. "Are the lights up yet? You always put them up first." So yeah, I broke the sacred HOA timing code by 4 days. But to Karen, it wasn't about context. It wasn't about family. It was an act of civil disobedience. And in her perfectly manicured world, holiday joy without approval? That's a punishable offense. The next morning, I step out with my coffee, and freeze. The lights are gone. Every last bulb. Every clip. Clean, surgical removal. In their place? A plastic bag tied to my doorknob with a folded notice inside. Violation resolved by HOA enforcement team. Confiscated decor items stored for retrieval upon payment of $250 administrative fee. Administrative fee? For my lights? I checked my porch cam. 2:17 a.m. 3 silhouettes, one definitely Karen, moving like stealthy little elves of doom. They didn't just unplug them. They snipped the wires. Like it was contraband. I stare at the bare railing. My niece is going to call tonight. And I'm going to have to explain why her favorite tradition vanished in the middle of the night. That's when something inside me shifts. Not anger. Not yet. Just a quiet decision. Okay, Karen. Game on. That evening, right on cue, my phone buzzes, FaceTime from my niece. She's all bundled up, cheeks pink, sitting cross-legged on her bed in base housing. "Uncle Jay! Show me the lights!" I hesitate, then flip the camera around. Just an empty porch. Cold. Bare. Lifeless. There's a pause. "Where'd they go?" I try to smile. HOA rules. They said I put them up too early." She tilts her head. "But you always put them up early." "For me." Her voice cracks, just a little. And there it is, the punch to the gut I wasn't ready for. Not the fine. Not the snipped wires. This look on her face. I fumble for words. "Hey, don't worry. I've got a better plan." She wipes her eyes. "Really?" I nod, and this time I mean it. "Yeah. We're going to make this Christmas unforgettable." And that's when I swear, I'm not just putting the lights back up. I'm going to light up the whole street. That night, I sat on the porch, hoodie up, coffee gone cold, just staring at the railing where the lights used to be. I wasn't even mad anymore. I was calculating. If Karen wanted a war over holiday cheer, she picked the wrong front yard. Because I wasn't just some passive neighbor who folds under fine print. I was a theater kid turned techie. I knew lights. I knew sound rigs. I knew how to put on a show. And this wasn't going to be about revenge. No, this was about reclaiming joy. For my niece. For the neighborhood. And maybe, just maybe, to show Karen what happens when you steal the wrong string of lights. I'm done playing small, I muttered to myself. Let's go big. Like turbus big. I grabbed my laptop, cracked my knuckles, and dove into the rabbit hole. First stop, HOA bylaws. 67 pages of Helvetica tyranny. But buried between acceptable mulch types and mailbox color schemes, I found gold. Holiday decorations are prohibited before December 1 SD. Unless authorized as part of a permitted public event. Boom. Loophole. Next stop, city ordinances. Turns out, I could host a seasonal, community attraction on my property as long as I kept pedestrian paths clear and didn't exceed 10 decibels after 9 p.m. Finally, I checked. Permits? Just a $30 application. Requirements? 2 neighbor signatures. I already had 4 before I even finished my second cup of coffee. By midnight, the plan was locked. December 1st. 1 house. 50,000 lights. And 1 very public middle finger to HOA tyranny. The next morning, I marched into City Hall with my filled-out application, 2 neighbor signatures, and a grin that said, I read the fine print too. The clerk barely glanced at the paperwork. Seasonal community display? Sounds festive. You're approved. Here's your event placard, must be posted visibly. I practically floated out of there. That afternoon, while Karen was out pruning her already pruned hedge, I staked the sign right into my lawn, in bold letters. Winter Lights Community Display, permitted by city. December 1st to January 2nd. I made sure the wind caught it just right so it flapped like a victory flag. And like clockwork, 4 minutes later, I saw her blinds snap open. She stared. She squinted. She stormed out. Excuse me. You can't just. I handed her a copy of the permit. Official seal. Approved signature. Her face froze somewhere between confusion and rage. You went around the HOA? I smiled. Nope. I just followed the rules. Karen didn't say another word. She just turned, clipboard trembling in her hands, and marched back inside. That's when I knew. The game had officially begun. By sunset, I had stage 1 in motion, just testing some basic lights. Nothing flashy yet. Just a few twinkles here and there to check the connections. That's when I heard it, the telltale click-click-click of Karen's camera phone, snapping photos from across the street like she was documenting a crime scene. She strutted over, waving her clipboard like it was a search warrant. This is unauthorized construction. I'll be filing a formal complaint with the city. Oh, you mean this construction? I said, pointing to the permit now laminated and duct taped to my front door. She stared at it. Scanned every word. Looked for a loophole. Found none. You can't just invite the whole town to our neighborhood. This is a quiet community. I leaned on the porch rail, her favorite rule-breaking spot. Well, it was quiet, Karen. Until someone cut my lights and made it personal. She didn't respond. Just narrowed her eyes, muttered something about escalation, and walked off like the whole HOA had just lost round 1. And oh, they had. Because what she didn't know yet was that the light show hadn't even started. Now that I had the green light, it was time to bring in the big guns. I called up my old buddy Trey, stage lighting genius, ex-touring tech for rock bands, and currently unemployed thanks to creative differences, with a pyro-happy magician. Say less, Trey said. I've got 3 fog machines, 12 floodlights, and a lighting controller that hasn't seen a crowd since Coachella. When do we start? He rolled up the next morning with a van full of gear, half of it held together with gaffer tape and dreams. By lunchtime, my lawn looked like a backstage production of Hamilton meets Santa's Workshop. Cables everywhere. Tripods. DMX boards. Extension cords running across the yard like veins ready to light up a monster. Karen drove by twice. Slowly. The second time she rolled down her window and yelled, "Is that even safe?" Trey just smiled and shouted back. Only if you believe in the magic of Christmas, ma'am. And then he leaned over to me and whispered, Dude, this is gonna cook her. And I knew right then, it already was. Trey had the lights. I had the plan. But we needed serious firepower, LED arches, synchronized audio, a snow machine that didn't look like it came from a party store clearance bin. So, I did what any underdog fighting HOA attorney would do. I made a TikTok. It was simple, just a 30-second video showing the before and after. Me putting up one gentle strand of lights. Karen confiscating them in the dead of night. A quick pan over Trey's chaotic light rigging with the caption, She stole my lights, so now I'm building the biggest Christmas show in town. Let's give HOA Karen something to cry about. I uploaded it and went to bed. When I woke up, 74,000 views. By lunch, 200K. By dinner, over 500,000. My inbox blew up. People were sending donations, LED suggestions, even offers to volunteer. One message just said, This is for your niece. Show her what Christmas spirit really looks like. Attached? $500. Within 24 hours, I had enough funds to rent speakers, buy programmable light strings, and even snag a used fog cannon from a haunted hayride crew in the next town over. The best part? We named the campaign #LetItGlow. And every dollar? Fueled the rebellion. As the TikTok gained traction, local businesses started reaching out. First came Sweetbriar Bakery, a cozy mom-and-pop place 2 blocks over. They messaged, We'll donate 2,000 Christmas cookies if we can put our banner near your cocoa table. Deal. Done. Cookies secured. Then the scout troop leader from down the street called. Can our kids help with the cocoa booth? It counts toward their community service badge. Boom. Now we had volunteers and matching scarves and a cocoa stand that looked straight out of a Hallmark movie. Trey, not to be outdone, turned our snow machine into a blizzard cannon that fired flakes every 30 minutes on the dot. It wasn't subtle. It was spectacular. Even the local hardware store got in on it. They offered us a sponsorship discount on cables and power supplies if we agreed to plug their name on the live stream overlay. At this point, it wasn't just a personal mission anymore. It was a movement. A full-blown, peppermint-fueled uprising against the grinchy grip of HOA micromanagement. And every cookie sold, every kid in line, every snowflake blasted into the sky, was one more reason Karen's eye twitched every time she drove past. The week before launch felt like prepping for a Broadway premiere. If Broadway had zip ties, tangled wires, and a fog cannon that kept scaring squirrels, Trey was in his element, perched on a ladder like a mad scientist, programming sequences into his lighting board, shouting things like, We need more sparkle in Quadrant 3! Every evening, more neighbors wandered over. Some helped hang lights. Some dropped off hot glue guns and old decorations. Some just stood around with cocoa and whispered, Is this really all because of Karen? Yes. Yes, it was. Meanwhile, Karen drove by constantly. She filmed from her SUV. She walked her dog back and forth, 6 times a day. She even brought out a measuring tape, pacing the sidewalk like a detective trying to find a crime that fit the punishment. Then came the moment that nearly broke her. Our neighborhood choir kids showed up to rehearse their synchronized dance to Jingle Bell Rock, in full elf costume, right on my lawn. Karen just stood across the street, lips pursed so tight she looked like she was eating a lemon, muttering into her phone. This is anarchy. Festive, musical anarchy. And the best part? We were just getting warmed up. 3 days before the big launch, it came. A thick, crinkled envelope stuffed into my mailbox, labeled in all caps. Cease and desist, HOA enforcement action. Inside? 10 pages of legal-sounding threats, bullet points, and bolded words like nuisance, unauthorized assembly, and excessive illumination. At the bottom, in shaky signature, Karen Whitmore, HOA president. I didn't panic. I laughed. Trey framed it and hung it next to the fuse box. Then we sent it to my cousin Ashley, an actual lawyer who once beat a parking ticket just to prove a point. She read the whole thing in silence, flipped to the last page, and said, "She spelled statute wrong 3 times. Ashley drafted a response that began with, "Dear HOA President Karen, thank you for your concern. However, your authority ends at the sidewalk, and so does your credibility." We printed it on holiday-themed letterhead, with candy canes, then taped a copy right next to our laminated city permit for all to see. That night Karen marched past with her flashlight, stopped to read the response. And for the first time, she didn't say a word. She just kept walking. December 1st. Launch day. The sun dipped below the rooftops, and the whole street buzzed like we were counting down to a rocket launch. Neighbors bundled in scarves. Kids with cocoa cups. Trey pacing like a director before curtain call. Even the city electrician showed up. He offered to dim the street lights for 1 hour so the display could shine at full effect. Karen? Oh, she was posted across the street, arms crossed, wrapped in a North Face jacket like it was armor against joy. I stepped up on my porch with a mic in hand. Yes, we had a mic, looked out at the crowd, and said, "They told us to take the lights down. So we decided to light up the whole neighborhood instead." The crowd erupted in cheers. I turned to Trey. "Hit it." Boom. The music kicked in, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, dramatic as ever. Then lights. Thousands of them. Bursting into motion. Waves of color rippling across the roof. Arches glowing, candy canes pulsing to the beat. The "Let It Glow" sign blazed above the garage like a battle cry. Snow machines fired into the night air. Kids screamed in delight. Even adults gasped. I looked over at Karen. She wasn't filming anymore. She was just frozen. Like someone who just watched their fortress of rules crumble under one glorious flood of LED revenge. And this was only night 1. The moment the lights hit full blast, it was like the house transformed into something out of a Christmas fever dream. Every inch was alive. The rooftop pulsed like a heartbeat. A digital tree made of synced LEDs danced to every drumbeat. Trey had even rigged the windows to flicker with animated scenes, reindeer leaping, sleighs soaring, a giant Santa that winked in time with the music. And then came the snow, cascading down in fluffy bursts, lit from below like glowing crystals. The crowd roared as flakes floated through the laser light beams. One little girl screamed, "It's magic!" And I swear to you, for a second, it was. The choir kids nailed their dance, the cocoa stand had a line down the sidewalk, and everyone had their phones out recording, laughing, clapping, crying. But best of all? The sign by the front walkway, lit in red and green strobes, suggested $5 donation, all proceeds to Lights Against HOA Bullying. People didn't even hesitate. Some threw in 20s. Some Venmo'd from the crowd. Karen? She stood at the end of her driveway, arms slack, jaw clenched. Someone tried to hand her cocoa. She swatted it away. I leaned into Trey. "She's not having fun." Trey grinned. "Good. We're just getting started." By the second song, the donation jar was overflowing. We duct-taped it to an old stool and labeled it with a hand-painted sign. "Help keep the lights bright. All donations go to military family relief, and a little bit of spite." People loved it. Parents dropped in bills. Teens tossed in change like they were tipping a rock star. One guy walked up, grinned, and slipped in $100 bill with a note that read, "For the uncle who fights HOA wars so we don't have to." We even added a QR code taped to a candy cane stick for Venmo tips. By the end of the night, we'd raised over $2,300. For real causes. For real families. And yes, for the satisfaction of watching Karen glare at that jar like it personally insulted her poodle. She paced back and forth across her driveway, holding her phone, clearly on some sort of emergency call, with someone who probably didn't care. Meanwhile, the crowd just kept growing. Laughter echoed. Kids ran through foam snow. and the house blinked like a runway of joy. And I thought, this started with one stolen string of lights. Now it's a movement wrapped in tinsel. By midnight, the footage was everywhere. Someone in the crowd had live-streamed the whole show on Facebook. Another tagged me in a TikTok montage set to Carol of the Bells with the caption, "When HOA Karen steals your lights so you become Times Square." The next morning, my phone exploded. Texts, DMs, news alerts. Hashtag Let It Glow was trending in the region. Local influencers reposted it. Even the mayor's office retweeted a clip with, "Now that's holiday spirit." And then came the local news van. They rolled up just after lunch, camera crew, mic in hand, and a reporter with a twinkle in her eye. "We heard about the HOA drama turned holiday miracle. Mind if we film a segment?" Karen, of course, tried to intercept them. "I am the HOA president. This isn't unauthorized." The reporter smiled politely. "Ma'am, the city issued a permit. We've already checked." Karen's face turned the same shade as our red floodlights. Meanwhile, the interview aired at 6 p.m. sharp. Me, standing proudly in front of the glowing house, saying, "It was never about the lights. It was about joy, community, and reminding people that no one gets to cancel Christmas, not even Karen." Viewers loved it. My niece called me right after, giggling through happy tears. "Uncle Jay, you're famous!" And as I looked out at the growing line of cars pulling into the neighborhood, I realized this wasn't just a show anymore. It was a phenomenon. By Friday night, the neighborhood looked like a winter festival on steroids. Cars snaked down the block, hazards blinking, windows rolled down, kids hanging out yelling, "That's the house! That's the one from TikTok!" Food trucks lined the cul-de-sac. Hot pretzels. Gourmet cocoa. Even one guy selling deep-fried candy canes. A local radio station caught wind and showed up with a mobile DJ booth. They started broadcasting live, syncing to Trey's light show playlist. And the cops? Oh, they weren't shutting us down. They were directing traffic, with grins on their faces and cocoa in hand. Karen, meanwhile, had gone full bunker mode. Her front yard was now fenced off with caution tape and a hand-painted sign that read, "No trespassing, HOA President Residence." Someone walked past and whispered, "Is she okay?" I just smiled. "She's adjusting." By Saturday, we had set up a full schedule. Light shows every 30 minutes. Cookie giveaway at 7. Elf dance-off at 8. And yes, snow cannon finales at 9. Each night ended with a projected message on my garage door in glowing red script. Let joy win. The whole town felt it. Karen tried to stop it. But at this point, even the HOA couldn't slow Christmas down. Sunday night was the tipping point. We had over 300 people on the block, live music from a high school jazz band, and a mini Letters to Santa table run by the scout troop. The cocoa booth ran out twice. Even the local fire department showed up, with lights flashing, just to take pictures with the kids. And then Karen broke. Mid-show, she stormed out of her house wearing a fleece robe, slippers, and a wild look that said I haven't slept in 3 days. She marched straight into the crowd, holding up her phone, live streaming as she shrieked, "This is a clear violation of safety codes. The sidewalks are blocked. The music is disruptive. This is not Christmas, it's a circus." Someone tried to hand her a cookie. She slapped it out of their hand. Parents stepped in to shield their kids. The DJ cut the music. Everyone just kind of watched. Then, softly, a little voice from the crowd, my niece, FaceTiming again, this time through my speaker, said, "Why is that lady yelling at Christmas?" The crowd chuckled. Karen's eyes darted toward the sound. She spun around, pointed at my house, and screamed, "I'm calling the state. This ends now." She stomped back inside, slamming her front door so hard the wreath fell off. And the best part? The entire thing was caught on 4 live streams and had already been clipped into a meme by the time Trey leaned over and said, "Well, that didn't look festive." I just shrugged. Some people light up houses. Some just burn down their own reputation. Monday morning, the HOA group chat, normally a ghost town, was on fire. Dozens of residents, once terrified of fines over mailbox colors, were now furious. Apparently, Karen's meltdown had backfired. People weren't talking about my lights anymore. They were talking about her tantrum. Her screaming. Her slapping a cookie out of a kid's hand on camera. So, she did what all cornered HOA presidents do. She called an emergency board meeting. Location? Community clubhouse. Time? 7 p.m. sharp. I showed up early. Not to cause drama, just to watch. But the room was already packed. Neighbors who never left their homes were now huddled in folding chairs with printed screenshots of Karen's livestream rant. Karen marched to the front, slammed her binder on the table, and opened with, "We are here to discuss the escalation of unauthorized events disrupting our peaceful neighborhood." Someone from the back cut her off. "Karen, the only disruption around here is you." Oof. It spiraled from there. Multiple residents demanded transparency on how fines were being used. One mom stood up and said, "You cut down a child's holiday tradition. Then you screamed at a crowd of families. Is that leadership?" Karen tried to regain control, flipping through her binder, but the room wasn't buying it anymore. A hand went up. Then another. Then someone said, "I motion to vote on new board leadership." Karen froze. Eyes wide. Clipboard trembling. And just like that, the HOA meeting turned into a mutiny. It all happened so fast. 1 minute Karen was flailing through bylaws like a magician reaching for vanishing rabbits. The next, the motion was seconded. Then someone passed around a clipboard. A recall petition. Right there in the middle of her emergency meeting. Neighbors who had once cowered under Karen's glare were now lining up with pens in hand, muttering things like, "About time. She fined me for wind chimes. She told my kid chalk art was graffiti." It took less than 15 minutes to gather the signatures. The HOA bylaws required 2/3 of homeowners to recall a sitting president. By the time the cocoa table ran out of marshmallows, we had 3/4 of the neighborhood signed on. Karen sat in the front stunned, eyes locked on the clipboard like it had personally betrayed her. The board's treasurer, an older gentleman who never spoken more than 5 words in any meeting, stood up, cleared his throat, and announced, "Effective immediately, the role of HOA president is vacated. We'll hold nominations next week." Karen didn't say a word. She stood up slowly, gathered her notes, and walked out of the clubhouse like a ghost of Christmas control. And the whole room? They clapped. Not loud. Just a warm, steady, joyful applause. The kind that says, "We're finally free." 2 days later, as if the universe itself had been watching, I got a call from City Hall. A staffer from the mayor's office said, "We've seen the videos. The light show, the donations, the drama. The mayor wants to recognize your display as an official seasonal landmark." I thought it was a prank. It wasn't. By the weekend, they sent over a printed proclamation on city letterhead, complete with the seal, gold foil, and a ribbon. "By order of the mayor's office, the residence at 143 Evergreen Lane is hereby designated an official winter wonderland stop for the holiday season." They even added us to the city's tourism map. And get this, a shuttle service started running on weekends to drop off families from nearby neighborhoods. It was surreal. Cars lined up around the block. Kids in elf hats handing out maps. Grandparents taking selfies under the candy cane arch. Karen's house? Dark. No wreath. No lights. Just a faded, and no trespassing, sign and blinds that never opened. I wasn't gloating. Okay, maybe a little. But mostly I just stood on the porch, cocoa in hand, watching families laugh and dance in the fake snow, thinking, this wasn't about me. Or her. It was about what happens when a community chooses joy over control. And apparently, joy comes with city-sponsored parking now. By the end of week 2, we emptied the donation jars to count everything, just out of curiosity. Trey and I spread the bills across my kitchen table, cocoa stains and glitter everywhere. We'd been joking all season, but now it got real. Really real. The total? $14,326.87. All from donations. All from people who believed a few lights could spark something bigger. We sat there in stunned silence until Trey finally said, "So, you still want to spend it all on spite fireworks?" I laughed. "No. We're doing what we said." We called up a military family relief nonprofit, the same one that had helped my sister-in-law last year when things got tight. I told them the story. The niece. The HOA. The crowd. The light show. They were floored. Then they asked, "Would you like to present the donation publicly?" Absolutely. So on the final weekend, we gathered in front of the house. Crowd packed in. Mayor showed up. The choir kids performed. And I handed them a giant novelty check, with, "In honor of HOA Karen," scribbled in gold marker across the top. People lost it. Cheers. Applause. Phones in the air. Even the scout troop saluted. And for once, I didn't look across the street. Didn't need to. This moment wasn't about her anymore. It was about what happens when you fight back, with kindness, glitter, and a few thousand watts of redemption. Just when we thought it was over, Karen struck again. A letter arrived in a stiff white envelope with "Private and Confidential" scrawled across the top. Inside, a formal notice. She was suing me. Claim? Emotional distress and light-induced insomnia. I read it twice. She was genuinely trying to argue that my holiday lights had psychologically traumatized her and caused irreparable neighborhood case. She attached blurry screenshots of her own TikTok meltdown as evidence. And even included a quote from a Facebook comment that said, "Karen's house looks like the last surviving bunker in a war against joy." Trey nearly choked on his cocoa laughing. We lawyered up. Well, we called Ashley again. She reviewed the packet, raised an eyebrow, and said, "This is barely a threat. It's a tantrum with a letterhead." Still, we took it seriously. Went to small claims court, just to play it straight. The judge, bless her soul, flipped through the pages and sighed. "You're claiming PTSD from synchronized LED reindeer?" Karen launched into a dramatic monologue about sleep deprivation, noise pollution, and something about peppermint triggers. Then Ashley pulled out the city permit, the donation totals, and finally, the clip of Karen bragging on Facebook about cutting my lights. The judge didn't even blink. Case dismissed. Next. Karen sat there stunned. Same expression she had when the choir sang, "Let It Glow," in front of her lawn. Only this time? She couldn't file an appeal. Christmas had officially won. The day after court, things were quiet. No crowds. No reporters. Just a soft December breeze and a neighborhood still glowing with leftovers from the grand finale. I stood on my porch sipping cocoa, thinking maybe, just maybe, it was time to end it right. So, I boxed up something simple. Not petty. Not loud. Just symbolic. Inside the package, the original string of warm white lights Karen had confiscated. A photo of my niece smiling beneath the light show, with the words, "Thank you for starting all this." And one last touch, a card, signed by every child who had visited the display. Glitter. Stickers. Crayon hearts. I walked it across the street and gently set it on Karen's front porch. No note. No doorbell. Just left it there like a truce. Later that evening, the box was gone. And for the first time in weeks, one soft, flickering candle appeared in her front window. No garland. No blinking. No music. Just light. And maybe that was enough. Because in the end, the war wasn't about decorations. It was about letting the light through, even if it had to blast its way past the clipboard first. New Year's Eve. The last night of the display. Trey had programmed something special, one last show, one last message. The crowd was thinner now. Mostly neighbors. Friends. People who'd been there from the beginning. People who knew what this had become. We dimmed the lights. Let the silence settle. Then hit play. Music swelled, slow, orchestral, like the end of a movie. Lights pulsed gently, moving in slow waves across the house like a heartbeat winding down. And then, the garage door lit up. Letter by letter, in massive glowing script. Thank you? Cheers erupted. Phones came out. Someone shouted, "We love you, Uncle Lights!" And then, our final flourish. The house blinked one last time. Then every bulb faded into a giant glowing symbol. Victory hand. A peace sign. Soft, steady, golden. A kid in the crowd whispered, "Even Karen would like that one." I just smiled. Yeah. Maybe she already does. And then we flipped the switch. One by one, the lights went dark. Until only the stars were left. Because the season was over. But the glow? That would stay with us. Weeks passed. Snow melted. Decorations came down. Life returned to normal, or at least the new version of it. But something had changed. The HOA, once feared like a silent government in khakis, had mellowed. New leadership meant fewer threats, more actual conversations, and believe it or not, a community suggestion box. And the bylaws? Amended. Right there, under Section 5, Paragraph C. Holiday decorations are permitted within reasonable seasonal spirit, beginning November 15th. Someone even added a smiley face in pencil. It stayed. Neighbors started hosting more events, yard movie nights, sidewalk chalk contests, even a spring light festival in April. Trey was dubbed the neighborhood lighting director. He made a laminated badge. No one asked him to, but no one stopped him either. Karen? Well, she didn't run for re-election. But she started walking her dog again. She waved now, still tight-lipped, still Karen, but a wave's a wave. And one evening in early spring, as I set out my recycling, I noticed a tiny wreath hanging on her door. Subtle. Soft. Quiet. But lit. I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Because that was the legacy. Not the lights. Not the live streams. Not even the $14,000 donation. It was the reminder that joy, when shared, becomes unstoppable. And all it took to prove it was one stolen strand of lights. With the season behind me and the neighborhood buzzing like we just lived through a Christmas legend, I did what any normal person would do next. I turned it into content. Trey and I edited together every clip, drone shot, live stream moment, Karen rant, and kids' reaction into a full-blown YouTube documentary. Title? How HOA Karen Accidentally Created the Brightest Light Show in Town. Thumbnail? Me holding a string of lights in one hand, and Karen's cease and desist in the other. Exploding snow effects in the background. Very tasteful. Very petty. Within a week, 100K views. Then 500K. Then media outlets picked it up. We got invited to a holiday podcast. Trey got a side gig doing light setups for weddings. And my niece? She made a reaction video. It got more likes than mine. Naturally. Ad revenue trickled in. Sponsors started sniffing around. One company sent us a prototype snow machine with the note, "For next year's reboot." I just laughed. Because this all started with one quiet act of defiance. Now, it was becoming a franchise. Karen wanted me to turn the lights off. Instead, I turned the camera on. A few weeks later, I stood on my porch, same spot, same chill in the air, watching the neighborhood settle back into its peaceful rhythm. Trey had packed up the last of the gear. The cocoa stand had turned back into a grill. Even the snow machine retired to the garage, probably dreaming of its next dramatic comeback. I sipped the last of my holiday blend and stared at the now dark house, smiling to myself. Then I turned to the camera, I kept filming, and said, "You know, it started with one string of lights, and ended with half the city singing carols in my driveway." Pause. Next year? Who knows? Maybe lasers. Maybe synchronized drones. Maybe Karen finally joins the cocoa stand. Grin. Either way, bring your lawn chairs, bring your cheer. And don't forget your $5. I reached over, flicked the camera off. Fade to black. Cue final message in bold red letters. Let joy win. No HOA approval required. Christmas tree.